morning, everyone. Glad that you're here. I am with a friend of mine, Jim Larsen. This is Get to Know Your Neighbor, which is a wonderful thing that we do here in our village because we have so many interesting, fascinating people who have done so many wonderful things. And a while back, I started going to the coffee shop in the morning at 9 o'clock, and I have met enormous amount of people that have had wonderful lives, and Jim is one of them. But I met him a long time ago. Anyway, so good morning, Jim.
Good morning, Pat.
Good morning. Good morning. So let's get started, and we'll talk about Jim's life, kind of from the beginning.
Okay.
So,
not to bore you too much, but I moved to Brooklyn in 1953. I was a freshman in Amityville High School out in Long Island, and I moved to Manual Training High School in Brooklyn, and it was a culture shock. They were at least 2 years behind me in everything. I stood in the room one day and watched a young girl as she was asked to go up and point out Chicago on a big map, and she didn't know where it was. So I decided that this school was not for me. I quit at 16 and went out, got a job as a shipping clerk, and also working for my grandfather in Steeplejack.
yeah, the picture?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a picture of that.
Okay.
Which
You don't see the bottom of the picture, but that was what I was working on. There's my grandfather was on that ladder up the side of the chimney, and his friend Louis, and I'm down the bottom holding on for dear life because I was frightened out of my mind.
Oh my goodness.
The highest I've ever been up in a little bosun's chair was 85 stories. And again, I was frightened out of my mind. However, I was making $57 a week at the shipping clerk job, and on weekends, working for my grandfather, I made $55 a day.
No brainer.
Yeah, I was the richest kid in the neighborhood. But as things went on, I turned 18, and I still didn't know what I wanted to do, so I joined the Army. Good thing, because while I was in the Army, I got my high school GED, and there should be some...
There's a picture of, there you go. Look at that handsome guy.
Jim Larsen, 36th Infantry, 1958, Germany. And the next picture is me. When I meet people and they come up to me and say, thank you for your service, I always tell them, don't thank me. I was in the Army in peacetime in Germany, and all I did was drink beer and chase girls. And as you can see, this was me. Anyway, discharged from the Army. However, before I got discharged, I visited Denmark, Sweden, and of course, just about all of Germany. And I got the bug. I wanted to travel. So I came out of the Army and looked for a job. I went out to the airport, walked around, finally got a job with Eastern Airlines cleaning airplanes. Not the outside, but the inside.
Oh.
Toilets, people getting sick, and all that stuff. However, I went from that to baggage handler. I went from baggage handler to supervisor, and then I decided it was time to move to the West Coast. Packed up the family, and we went to California. Stayed out there for 1 year, knew this wasn't the place, came back, and joined an airline called Seaboard World Airlines. And that's where I spent the rest of my good aviation time.
Do you have a picture of the Seaboard?
Yeah, there should be something up there pretty soon. As an executive with Seaboard, we were always very serious on our meetings. However, sometimes we would get carried away.
And put on mustaches.
But we had aircraft, CL-44. That was a swing-tail airplane. It was a turboprop jet. And we loaded the airplanes from the rear. Then that went away, and we went to DC-8s. The DC-8 would carry 90,000 pounds, and I flew many a flight on that, seeing all the parts of the world that I wanted to see, or at least most of them. And then along came the beauty, the 747-200. She was gorgeous. Our paint job probably outdid anybody else's anywhere. And she loaded from the front. And if you notice up there, there's a 20-foot container, just like an ocean container. We were pioneers in that.
Pretty big.
Yeah. And then we went to, we also had a side door. And you see a container down there. Look at the size of that cabin. It's tremendous. In that container are 6 1,000-pound Holstein cows, pregnant Holstein cows.
Pregnant cows.
Yes. We would carry upstairs 240 pregnant Holstein cows. And we flew to Iran, Saudi Arabia, Bulgaria, and a bunch of other countries.
Where did the cows come from?
From various farms all over the United States. We would pick them up in Vermont. We would pick them up in out in the Midwest, Richmond, Virginia, anywhere. There was a company called the Holstein Friesian Association, and they're up in Brattleboro, Vermont.
Okay.
And if you wanted to find a cow, a single cow, you went to them. And they would tell you where that cow was at any given time.
Oh, yeah. They had them all marked and,
yes,
and numbered?
And numbered and computerized. Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, it was something.
They must have been pretty heavy.
1,000 pounds each, yeah.
So, but they must have been moving, too.
Oh, yeah, they were, but they were restrained inside that wooden cage that we had them in. And funny enough, we would dump our cattle and the cages, wooden cages. And the Saudis made us take the wood out. They didn't want the wood. Now, there are no trees in Saudi Arabia. I would have taken any piece of wood I could have found, but that's
so
me.
What can you do? That's what they wanted. And you had to deliver what they wanted.
Exactly.
Did you ever transport any other animals?
Yes. Live sharks to Munich.
Sharks?
Yes, in troughs. The troughs were about this big. They were small sharks. It was the Munich Olympics in the 1970s, and the sharks were being sent over to be put in a tank behind the bar at the brand new Holiday Inn that was built in Munich.
My goodness, where did the sharks come from? The water, I know.
Yeah. Off the coast of Miami. I guess they found a bunch of them.
Off the coast of Miami.
Yeah. And also monkeys, pigs, sheep, goats, and just about anything that walked on 4 legs or even 2 legs, we would carry. Yeah.
Wow. You told me about that story reiterate the story about when you were flying over a zone that was a non-flight zone.
Oh, yes, yes. It was a seaboard. I believe, if I remember right, it was Seaboard Flight 273.
Wow.
We were flying GIs, 214 GIs, from the States, Travis Air Force Base, to Vietnam. Oh, and we got up over the Kuril Islands, where we shouldn't have been. We were about 100 miles off course. And the next thing, we looked out the window, and there was a Russian MiG. And we looked out the window on the other side, and there was another Russian MiG who kindly asked us to come down. Oh. We spent 48 hours in the Kuril Islands and took off again after the State Department finally got permission for us to leave. Yeah. And it made Look magazine, the picture.
Wow, how about that?
Yeah.
How about that time when you they took you down because they weren't sure what you were carrying?
Oh, yeah. That was a good one. That was, we had taken a load of pigs, 600 30-pound pigs.
600 pigs.
30 pounds.
I bet you that's
They were
was,
little guys.
oh, they were babies.
And we picked,
Little babies.
we picked them up in Richmond, Virginia, and we flew from Richmond, Virginia to Lagos, Nigeria. And when we pulled up, they put the passenger stairs up to the airplane, and I said, "Where's the ramp for the pigs to walk down?" So they said, "Oh, we don't have a ramp. They'll walk down the stairs." Now, the pig's legs were about maybe 6 inches high, and the stairs were about a foot high. So when the pig walked out, and he just tumbled down the stairs, and they threw him in the truck. But I guess it didn't make any difference, because he was going to ultimately end up being contributed to their diet anyway. We finished up. Airplane's still dirty. Pigs stink.
They do.
Yes.
Don't cows stink too?
No. Oh, I used to walk onto an airplane that had been used and smell cow manure, and I always said, "Smells like money." But the pigs smelled like pigs. They were terrible. However, we got them all off. We were going back to Frankfurt to be cleaned, and we got over Algeria, and Algerian radio came on and said, "Aircraft, identify yourself." And we said, "Yeah, Seaboard 512, en route from Lagos to Frankfurt." And they said, "Seaboard, we don't have any overfly rights for you." And they said, "Of course, you have overfly rights. Frankfurt always files when they're supposed to file." And he said, "I'm sorry, no overfly rights, you have to come down." So the captain was looking out the front windshield, and he said, "See the Mediterranean? If we get to that, we can scoot out of here and the heck with them." So we started out, and the voice came on and said, "Seaboard, if you don't come down, we're going to come up and get you."
Oh,
So
that doesn't sound good.
no, not at all.
No.
So we landed, and gentleman came running out. They put the stairs up to the airplane. He came up. I opened up the door. Now, we had been in there for about 30 hours with these pigs, and it stunk. And when I opened up the door, the official went, "Ah!" And he said, I'll be right back." And about 5 minutes later, a guy came running out with overfly rights, gave them to us, and we took off.
Wow. Yeah. My goodness. Well, if they would have shot you down, that wouldn't have been so good. So good thing you came down and obeyed with the rules.
Okay. As we went on, I had various positions with Seaboard. I started out as a cargo supervisor. Then I was a shift manager. Then I was station manager in Philadelphia and also station manager in Los Angeles. And then I became the director of air cargo system performance for the airline. And that meant that I more or less had jurisdiction over training at any of our facilities, and also just plain operations. If the operations were going well, I would go over and find out why they weren't. And I just read an article about the only pilot that was ever killed at Seaboard World Airlines, and he was in Frankfurt. He was walking out to the airplane. He passed by a door. The door was open, and out came a 30,000-pound forklift and ran over him.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah.
So that was the only, and I went over to investigate the accident. So. But in 1980, the Seaboard was purchased by the Flying Tiger Line, which was then purchased by Federal Express. So I have never worked for Federal Express, but I get a pension from Federal Express. They're very nice people.
I'm glad you like them.
So I left, and I went on through various positions with ground handling companies and aviation-related jobs. And finally, I opened up my own business as a consultant, and I did that for about a year. And along came a job with the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. That was in 1989. And there's a picture in there of somewhere.
No.
Keep going.
That picture is of him addressing.
Yeah. Oh, I dropped back a little. I spent 2.5 months in India during the Pakistani-Indian War, coordinating our ground operations at, believe it or not, Dum Dum Airport. That's the name of the airport. Yep.
Dum Dum.
That's the name of the airport.
Look at some of your friends.
Yeah. This was just a nice drive through wonderful India. It was a shock for me. There's some more in there, I believe. Yeah. And
What was shocking in India?
poverty. Poverty was, it's a culture shock. To me, it was a culture shock. If you go there and see just how extremely poorly the people live, from my window at my hotel, I could look out, and across the street at about maybe 4:30 in the afternoon, a woman would come along with a couple of children, and she would kind of set up and had a little campfire going on the sidewalk. They would burn cow dung.
Oh, dear.
And it smoked like hell. But and she would sit down and cook dinner, and hubby, from wherever he came from, would get home. She would serve them dinner. They would sit out there. They would sleep on that sidewalk, and in the morning they would get up and go wherever they went. And then in the evening they'd come back.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow.
I can remember being at the airport. I walked in one day, and I looked outside, and there was a haze. It was like fog. And they told me the airport was closed. I was expecting my flight to come in, and sure enough, the Seaboard, Joe Tossolini, his name was, the captain, called, and he said, "I'm sorry, you can't, you'll have to hold because we're closed." So he said, "No, you can't be closed. I could see closed due to weather."
Sure.
And he said, "No, it can't be. I can see the tower. I can see the buildings. No, it can't be closed." So I said, no, if you come down a little further, you'll see that the runways are foggy. And he came down. He said, "Let me take a look." He came down, he looked, and he went, "You're right." And he went out, and he circled around for about an hour or so. But it wasn't fog.
What was it?
It was smoke from cooking fires.
Oh, my
And
goodness.
in the morning, everybody anywhere would get up and start their fire to make breakfast.
And do you know what
they
they
were
would
using cow dung. And the cow dung, they would take the cow dung, slap it into patties, slap it on the wall, and when it dried, it would fall off the wall. And that's what they used.
And what did they eat, though?
Oh, who knows?
Who knows?
I never sat at a cow dung fire to eat.
No, I wouldn't have done that either.
Always went back to the Oberoi Grand Hotel.
Yeah, that would have been my choice, too. Yeah.
It turned out that was my refuge. I could go into the hotel. In the evening, I'd go to the bar and meet everybody. There were news teams from CBS, NBC, and ABC during the time that the war was on.
Of course.
And Peter Jennings would
Yeah.
come out in the morning, and we'd all be sitting at the pool having our coffee, and Peter Jennings would set himself up over at a corner of the pool area, and he would do his taped broadcast. "Hi, this is Peter Jennings coming to you." And if you looked at it, you thought he was in the middle of a jungle because there were a bunch of trees, and all you could see was him and the trees.
But he was actually at the bar.
Actually standing at the pool. And we'd all be sitting there going,
That's funny. You know, also, I remember we talked, and you said that while you were in the service, a famous man was in the service, too.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
I joined the Army. I was sent to Fort Dix. And from there,
Just
about
up
a
the
week
road.
in Fort Dix, and I was sent to Fort Hood, Texas. We were put on a plane at McGuire Air Force Base
Yeah.
and flown down to Temple, Texas airport and picked up by a bus. The bus drove us into the Fort Hood, and we pulled up in front of our new barracks. And as we pulled up, the sergeant who was in charge of the bus said, "I just want to tell all you guys, there ain't no man in this here Army gets any special privileges." And he pointed out the window, and we all looked, and there was Elvis Presley scrubbing a garbage can.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I saw a lot of them. We were best friends, and he wouldn't know me from Adam, but I saw quite a bit of them. And I felt sorry for him because
Why?
he'd come to the coffee or to the snack bar on Sundays to have his breakfast. And he would get his breakfast, and he'd sit down at the table, and a line would form immediately. And he'd start signing autographs, and he signed every autograph. And at the end of it, his meal was cold, and he would get up and leave. And I often thought, how can you live a life where you have no personal time at all?
Yeah.
You know, and it's probably what drove him to drugs. And
Could have been.
yeah,
Yeah. See how lucky we are?
yes,
We're just ordinary Joes. We don't
Right.
have to worry about that
exactly.
kind of
That's
stuff.
why I didn't learn to play the guitar.
Is that why? Okay. Well,
Okay, so left Seaboard. I joined the Port Authority as manager of air cargo business development. Marketing.
there you are.
There we are. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And I stayed with the port for 13 years. Now, I guess luck always traveled with me because I stayed there 13 years. During my whole career, all the airlines I worked for had gone out of business. Eastern Airlines went out of business. Continental Airlines went out of business.
Oh, that's
Seaboard
true. I
went out of business.
remember all of them
Yeah.
going out of, I remember
So
that.
no pensions. To me, no pensions of anything.
Thank
no
God for
medical.
FedEx.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, my $100 a month.
Oh, wow.
But when I joined the Port, when I retired from the Port Authority, I got all these things. And my job with the Port Authority was to travel around the world and throw cocktail parties in various hotels.
What a job.
Yeah, to convince people that they should use the New York airports for their cargo.
Well, how about that?
Yeah.
And all you had to do was act naturally.
Exactly. And drink.
And drink.
I could do both.
Seemed like it came together pretty good. Yeah,
They picked the right guy.
you picked the right guy. But then when you moved here, let's talk
Yes.
about that.
Yeah, moved here in 2005. Actually, while I was with the Port Authority in 2001, I was at my desk at the World Trade Center on the 65th floor, and American Airlines Flight 11 hit the building, and hit pretty hard. It scared the hell out of me, that's for sure.
And the
The
world.
building went over, and I thought, this is it. We're dead. This building's going to fall. But it didn't. It came back and went the other way. And then it came back, and it went like that a few times, and it stopped. And as soon as it stopped, I said, okay, time to get out. Left everything, started for the stairs. There were only 2 people on the floor with me. It was 7:45 in the morning, or 8:45, 8:46, when the plane hit. So 10 minutes later, probably. And there were just 3 people, myself, my secretary, and 1 other person. And we headed for the stairs, and we walked down. And I always describe that as my walk down the stairs at the World Trade Center. But it took from 8:46 in the morning until 4:30 in the afternoon before we finally got, or I finally got to Grand Central Station.
Wow.
And got on a train. And it was my train, the 515 to Peekskill. And it was the bar car.
That was lucky, but that was scary. I remember when you took me and Janet and Richie Ramos, and we went to the World Trade Center,
Yeah.
and you showed us all around. That was so impressive and so sad.
Yeah, it was.
You were leaving a flower. Yeah.
I did that for about 6 or 7 years. I was a tour guide at the World Trade Center Memorial. And I'd take people around, and I would always stop at the one part of the wall where there was a name, Christine Lee Hansen, and her father, Lee Hansen, and her mother, I can't remember their names. But I would always stop there because Christine Lee Hansen was the youngest person killed, and she was 2.5 at the time. Yeah.
So
And,
sad.
yeah. Of all of them, she was the most memorable, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. That was awesome. We saw that big teardrop, and
Yeah.
in the pool.
Yes.
It stays with you.
Oh, yes, the American Express
Yeah.
Memorial over the World Financial Center. Yeah. It's 11 sides. It's a pool. Over the pool, there's a 300-pound piece of Brazilian quartz
Yeah.
and a computer that drops a pool below that had 11 sides, one for each one of the employees that were employed by American Express in the World Trade Center. They were up on maybe the 98th floor or something. None of them got out.
Oh.
And the computer would emit a drop of water down into the pool all the way around. And the drops would kind of just mingle and become one. Yeah, it's a beautiful memorial, and I would say probably hundreds and hundreds of people pass and don't even know it's there. Yeah.
Well, I do because you pointed it out, and I'm glad that you did. Yeah. So before that, though, you did come to here and lived here, and you were also a trustee here.
Yes. Yeah, for a little while.
That's a big step to be a trustee.
Yeah. I enjoyed it.
Did you?
It was okay.
Yeah.
Only did one term, and that was it.
And that was enough of that. Did you get, when you were a trustee, did you get a lot of calls about different things?
No.
No?
No.
Oh, you were lucky.
I tell you the truth, absolutely no calls. I never got any calls. Nobody ever called me at home. Yeah.
Well, I understand that's not the way it is, Jeanette.
That's what it
Some people that are trustees are experiencing, But we have that coffee with the trustees on Saturday morning, which is so good. It's over in the Queen Mary room, and it's such a great idea to bring for the people of our village to come and talk to the trustees and tell them, give them suggestions, ideas, and I think it's a good thing because I think when you're at the meeting and you get up and talk as a resident, it's not always the best time. I think the best time is when you're one-to-one.
Yes. Yeah. Informal.
Informal. That's the right word.
Yeah.
You're so smart. But since then, so now you.
I do tours at the Lakehurst Naval Air Station.
Yeah.
And we
where
talk
I used to work.
Yeah. We talk about, we start the tour at the Cathedral of the Air. And we do a tour in the cathedral, and then we leave and we go on base and we go to the crash site of the Hindenburg. And we spend about 45 minutes out there describing what happened that day, May 6, 1937, and how the Hindenburg died there. And the 35 passengers who were on board, and one groundman who were killed that day. Yeah. And then we go back to the hangar, and we have a museum in the hangar, quite a large museum.
That's a very impressive museum. Very.
Yeah, and I call it the best kept secret in New Jersey sometimes.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you.
Yeah, we don't get many people. Yeah, but it's difficult.
After this viewing, we may get a lot more. Just wait and see.
Keep our fingers crossed.
Keep our fingers crossed.
I always called it the best kept secret in New Jersey. Yeah. But that was because the military requires us to sign people up for a tour 2 weeks in advance, and then submit a manifest of all the names of the people and their license numbers, driver's license numbers. And we submit that to the military, and they approve or disapprove. And at times they have disapproved some of the people on the manifest. Yeah.
Well, it's good that they're keeping track of security, you know.
Oh, yeah. Well, before that, I'm told before 9/11, you could just practically walk in. You know, there was no...
Well, that's true, because Jim and I used to do that. We used to go to the gym there on the base, and we
Yes.
used to shop in the commissary and the PX, and there wasn't, the security wasn't as tight as 9/11. 9/11 changed a lot of things.
Yeah.
I also could get all my medical, you know, see doctors and stuff there. And after 9/11, only active duty could do that. So
Right.
things certainly changed.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did. You know, even the Cathedral of the Air didn't have those bunkers around it. You know, that they put those bunkers up after 9/11, and we used to have to park far away from everything because they were afraid that the buildings would get blown up. Or
Yeah.
So, you know, there was a lot of security after that. So, you know, things have changed a great deal. But anyway, you know, I'm glad that you shared all that you shared here today. And I didn't tell you something else about Jim. Jim is also a writer, and he wrote a poem. Actually, I think it was just last week. Would you like to read it?
It's, I'm still working on this one.
Yeah, but I thought it was done.
I looked out my window and saw snow today. Then I asked Alexa, and she said that rain will wash the snow away. I guess good things can't last. What a pain. Got a load of robocalls last night. Garbage pickup is canceled today, and don't drive till the snow on the roads is out of sight. So I sit here this morning waiting for the plows to arrive. It's amazing how nowadays we're in a tizzy because an inch of snow has come down. I can remember when it took a foot to make us dizzy, or maybe cause us to wear a frown. Back then, we couldn't wait to get outside, jump into snowbanks, or on a sled to ride. Snowballs were thrown, no place to hide. Not even your sled could speedily glide. Wish I was young again, the snow like a rushing stream. Such wonders escape me now, as I sit by my window and steadily dream. All I can do is think, where are the plows?
Thank you, Jim. That was neat. I think a lot of people were thinking that on Friday.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I think they were, because we were all inside. You know, we
Locked
couldn't
in.
go out.
Cabin fever.
A little bit, yeah. Well, thank God for the robocalls that we do get. You know, the one. You know, I think that's really good because it keeps us informed of what's going to happen. Anyway, we're coming to the end of this show, and I just want to say thank you so much, Jim, for coming and talking with us and telling us all about your life and your exciting career. And I do have one question, though. What do you take from when you were first starting out that you still use today and live by today?
The importance of education, for starters. Had it not been for the military, and really one guy in the military, I can't think of his name now, but anyway, after basic, I went to advanced basic, and I was training to be a clerk typist, of all things. And when one of the guys that was in the barracks I was assigned to, the headquarters barracks, found out that I didn't have a high school diploma, and he kept pushing me. Rogers, his name was. And he was an assistant editor for the Amsterdam News, Harlem newspaper. And he pushed and pushed, and he got me books, and we sat, and finally I went down and took my test, and I got my high school diploma. And I found out later in life that high school diploma then meant as much as a college degree would be now, a bachelor's degree would be now. And if it wasn't for that, I probably wouldn't have gone as far as I went.
So that was good. There's
That
your
was
little
good.
angel.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you so much for listening to Jim and myself today. And I want to say, be kind to each other. And if nobody told you they love you today, I love you. And there's a lot of love in this village, and let's spread it. Thank you.